Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Yep, it's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God, Angela Yee. Envy is not here. Envy, he's actually out the country, but we got family in the building, man. The brothers from Earn Your Leisure, Rashad and Troy, and the master investor, Ian Dunlap, is here. What's happening, my people?
What's going on, brother? Long time no see.
I know, right?
I just want to say, Ian Dunlap looks official.
Ian always come official. When did Ian not look official?
I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's on his Ian St. Patrick today.
Ian don't got no regular clothes. Nothing but suits.
You got to dress how you want to be addressed.
That's what he sleeps
That's a
in.
fact. You heard what he said? No, that's real. Say it again.
You got to dress how you want to be addressed.
Woo, that's real.
I heard that.
So why is you dressed how you want to be
This
addressed?
is how I want to be addressed.
Has a mom? Like moms?
She's
moms on it.
The tea and coffee connoisseur she is.
Yeah. You got the lumberjack thing going on.
That's what I'm blessed with.
But Market Mondays, man. Tell us about that at the Hulu Theater, Madison Square Garden on November 27th.
Yes. So it's really, really big. Not only just, we're doing a show in Madison Square Garden on Black Friday weekend. That's obviously tremendously important for the city and for the culture. But I think that it just speaks volumes of where we're at right now, where we can sell out a venue like, MSG Hulu Theater, and we're not rapping, we're not playing basketball, we're teaching about financial literacy, but it's a vibe. So, it's something that's extremely encouraging and really, really dope to see so many people enthusiastic about it. And, it's going to be a night to remember. I actually want to say something, if I can, a surprise that we're going to break.
Yeah, break.
Okay.
So nobody's heard this news before. Save this for this moment.
So, all right. So our shows are vibes. You guys know. You've been to Invest
Education
Fest.
and vibes.
You haven't been
I
to
was
a
at
show yet?
Invest
No, I don't think so.
You got to come, brother.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
it was insane. We couldn't even walk down the hallway.
Yeah.
This is true.
But that's because Steve Harvey was there and they did
Just because of Steve, Jesus Christ. Steve was there because of them.
He's our partner.
They were like,
Angela.
no one could go in the hallway right now. I was back there with Rashad's mom.
That's a fact.
But so for Madison Square, we got a dope lineup. We got my guy Mouse Jones to open it up with Trap
Mouse.
Karaoke.
Yes.
We got DJ
Karaoke.
Sus one on the 1 and 2s.
Sussy in the city.
Yes.
That's the home team.
So we
from our
got
neighborhood.
we got Peter Tuckman. He's the Einstein of Wall Street. The guy's been on Wall Street for like 30 years. He's a genius when it comes to stock investing. We got Don Peebles, who's a billionaire real estate developer working on building the first black owned skyscraper in New York City. And then we got our guy Jadakiss to perform. I thought it would be only right to have Jadakiss in the building.
We got to.
And then Ian is gonna give his masterful performance.
But you're going to perform too?
No, I'm going to
I'm
teach.
kidding.
That's fine. But no, I try to make sure in the education that it is entertaining, because we've all been to seminars and it's really boring. So I'll be covering the 25 stocks to invest in, the 50 to stay away from, the 2 crypto I like, the 10 to stay away from, and how to make $22,000 a day from trading. But I have to make some calls. We got a special guest coming in.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a sit-down conversation with none other than the champ, Floyd Money Mayweather.
Wow.
Be in the building.
only
Isn't he invested in skyscrapers too in New York?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Floyd's a great investor.
I think that's one of the things people overlook, right? They see him, spending money, but they don't realize what he's doing in business. So the commercial real estate is something. He's also invested in NASCAR. He has a lot. His portfolio is so expansive, but people tend to overlook that. And so to sit down with him to go over that, and I feel like he's wanted to talk about it for so long,
Right.
but people just, they just want to hear boxing. But he has a great mind and a great business
When
mind.
he got the tallest building in New York, I
He's
think.
part of the
he's part of the owners.
93-story Vanderbilt in Midtown. So his portfolio, he has that under his investment portfolio. But there's like 8 other skyscrapers in New York that nobody even thinks of Floyd Mayweather when they think of it, but he's definitely part of it.
And he changed the game for sports too. He's the first guy to make $100 million in one fight, $200 million. The way he revolutionized boxing and being his own entity as a business, as opposed to everybody else that's working with promoters for such a long period of time. And him and Al Heyman, what they've been able to do on the business side, I don't think he gets enough credit for it. And he has an all-black team too.
That's
when you look at Al Heyman, when you look at Leonard Ellerbe, I don't think Floyd actually gets enough credit for his business acumen. So to have a conversation with Champ at Madison Square Garden is going to be legendary.
That's a huge deal, and I'm sure he had some fights there too.
Yeah.
So for him to go there in a different type of
Light.
Yeah, light.
Yeah, I mean, you think of the greatest fights in the Madison Square Garden. Obviously, you think Ali Frazier. You think about all the great heavyweights that have come there. to have this, probably one of the greatest of all time, come, but not actually sparring. He's actually going to be talking about business. I think it's just something that's monumental.
Mayweather and Jadakiss, boy, two champs from
champs?
the two champs, definitely two champs.
He's gonna bring them out.
I wonder what has more impact for y'all nowadays. Is it the podcast or the live shows? Because y'all killing with the live shows. Like you did the Garden, y'all sold out London with Invest Fest. Like you had 12,000 in Atlanta. 14,000 in Atlanta. How many in London?
About 4,000.
4,000.
Yeah.
Like what's having more impact for y'all now?
If I can speak freely, I think a combination of both.
Okay.
Of course, they built one of the biggest podcasts in history, but I think when you get a chance to talk to people in person, it's one thing that I've prided myself on, and they have as well, as like making time for the people, interacting, shaking hands, and kissing babies. So I think it's a combination of both that you need to do in order to have a sustainable model for the long term.
And he's changed the game too. I want to give him his credit because
Thank you, brother.
he changed the game as far as like performing. So when I say he's performing, I really mean he's performing. Like he came to Invest Fest with 200 people on stage and a mask and smoke, and he was asking for all of this stuff, and I'm like, yo, bro, you bugging out. But then I realized,
Don't you forget the tank. Don't forget the tank. He wanted the tank. and so
guns, he wanted guns and everything.
I'm a wrestling fan.
Okay.
So I wanted to do some of the DX. I saw you did Sting. So I wanted to have those kind of themes in there. Because when we go to seminars, normally I've never heard anybody say, I went to a seminar and man, I had a blast. You may learn something. So taking those elements from rap, Wu-Tang, Pac, WWE, WCW, and blending them all in, plus teaching you how to make money, I think is a formula. Because boring is always is going to push our people away. And if we want our people to be interested in money, investing, we have to package it in an entertaining fashion.
Now, since you guys are here, we got to talk about some things, and we.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God,
Here she go.
Wait, this is finance. This is your field because y'all just brought up crypto.
Okay.
Yes.
Right,
FTX.
Yes. So I want to talk about that for you to break that down because the other day we reported this. This guy basically lost his $15.6 billion fortune, Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yep.
And so how did that happen? And does that mean, because I know we sat up here and talked about it, people are already scared of crypto. I know Envy was like, I'm glad I didn't invest.
That's funny.
And I know, Charlamagne, you haven't invested in crypto either, right?
No, but I believe in crypto. I just don't think that all of these different currencies are going to sustain.
What
It'll be
do
like,
you believe in?
Bitcoin seems like the most stable
Ethereum?
one.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
All right, so let's talk about that and what that actually means because it did make a lot of people be like, see, I told you, that's why I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
we'll just go down the line with it.
Yeah.
The most important thing is, and I said this yesterday on the show, if you bring a cryptocurrency token up to your family and friends, my litmus test is always my mom, dad, and elders. And I ask them, does this sound like a scam to you? So if I'm telling you that I have a token and this went up 9,000% or 3,000%, most of our family are going to say, hey, it's a scam. Another good litmus test, if I brought it to you, would you buy it from me? So I think one of the biggest issues that we have is that we are looking for sensational gains with no work, and everyone knows in here, you can't get 7,000%, 5,000% return without working. And what he was able to do is he was able to get, and we have to talk about the venture capital community, they're the ones who are funding a lot of these projects that are going belly up. So we have to start from the top down, but I don't want to say it was a scam from the beginning, but anyone who's been close to the situation, whenever you take clients' money and you put it towards your project because you're losing money, that is fraud.
Yeah.
Damn.
So and to give people a full explanation of what actually happened. So Sam, he had a exchange called FTX, and they have a currency called FTT. So it's like, if you're familiar with the crypto world, Binance. You ever heard of Binance?
Binance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's-
Binance is like the largest global platform when it comes to crypto, and they have a Binance coin. So FTT was the native currency for FTX. So what ended up happening is that a report was published that FTX held a suspicious amount of FTT currency
From the competitor.
and it made Binance, who actually had a lot of FTT coins, publicly announced that they were going to be selling their FTT coins because they wasn't comfortable with the situation.
So Binance kind of ruined them.
Well,
kind
so
of.
I'm gonna go there for you, Ann.
So once Binance put that out, everybody got scared. Everybody thought that this coin's gonna fall apart. So now you got to run on the bank, and everybody's trying to pull their coins out. There wasn't enough liquidity to cover everybody trying to pull their money out.
Yeah.
So when that happened, that collapsed the coin overnight, which collapsed the exchange overnight, which collapsed his fortune overnight. He lost $14.6 billion in one day. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
So
But it was built on
the
a house
other
of
part
cards.
is like knowing who your competition is. So you said Binance, right?
Yeah.
So in retrospect, Binance saw that they were going to collapse and said, hey, maybe we'll bail you out.
Yeah.
But in order to bail you out, we have to see your books. If we know cryptocurrency in the space, there is no regulation, so people don't have to show their books. But in order for me to help you, I need to see it. When they looked at the numbers, they said, wait, there's no liquidity here. I'm not doing this, right? And so now you've shown your competition the books.
Right. And now they're like, let's destroy you.
And now
One
With
of
the
the-
letter of intent.
with the
That's
letter of
crazy
intent,
part.
right? So it's
One
like
of
we're
the
gonna
48 laws
do
of
it on
Destroy
top.
it completely.
Exactly.
That's a fact.
We might
That's a
help you,
fact.
but now that you've shown us that what you have, well, there's no way we're gonna help you. And so now you're talking about an exchange that is now gone.
And now the founder of Binance is like, all right, well, let's rebuild this.
Yeah.
It's like billions.
Yo, conquer.
In real life.
Destroy
we
and
are
conquer.
living a Netflix documentary and billions in real time. But also, too, look at the arrogance of Sam at 30 to tell other investors, we don't want to work with you. They had no board of directors. And when people asked to see the financials, they said no.
Wow.
That's sign number one that,
Is a problem.
yes. thank
Could
you
be a
for saying
problem.
it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, what does it do for crypto long term? Like you said, a lot of people have fear around it. I think regulation comes. I don't know
Absolutely.
how fast it comes, but it will come because people are not going to stand to see money being lost. Obviously, hedge funds and managers have lost money, but people have lost money. And the more people lose money and big wigs lose money, regulation will come at some point to say, all right, this can't happen again.
Ian, are
Won't
you keeping
regulation
your
scare
money?
people too, though? Because isn't it one of the reasons people like Bitcoin is because it's not regulated?
But I think going into this
crypto, I mean?
election cycle, one of the biggest things that they're going to run is the safety of the people. So in 2008 and 2009, regulations got a lot tighter. So as a result, they're going to angle it and say, and I've told people from the beginning, hedge funds and banks have put people in these crypto projects to destroy them so that the banks could then take them over. JP Morgan's been partnering with Ethereum. This destruction of FTX is planned. So regulation may push people away for a little bit, but it will create safety.
Ian, are you holding on to your crypto?
I'm holding on to Bitcoin and Ethereum. I like
Okay.
Ripple as well, but outside of that, I'm not touching. I mean, I told people last year when it was at 60,000, Bitcoin was going to come down to 20. We're a little bit underneath that. I think Ethereum is going to hit a low. I think Bitcoin may actually hit maybe 9,583. That's a price where I'm looking to add some more considerably.
So you think it's still worth buying?
On sale.
If you're holding it long term.
Yeah.
Our biggest mistake in the culture, we want to flip really fast. And I said this yesterday on the show. Like, I never hear you or Steve Harvey or you ever say, "Hey, I'm buying these coins that no one else has heard of, that everyone's talking about on Twitter and Instagram." If these coins and projects they're viable, everybody in the industry will be pouring their money into them.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to follow the people that are doing really well and mimic what they're doing to have long-term success. But I'm only really focused on the big three.
Now, do you
and buy
think
them at the
Sam
best price.
can come back from this?
He's done.
Damn.
I'll go on record. He's done. Well, where is he going to get money from? Okay, let's look at it like this. He has the entire financial industry against him. He ruined crypto. When you take, so he ran Alameda Research, which is their hedge fund. When you take money from clients and move it over here, it's not legal. And in every, this is the biggest point, in every recession and scandal, you need a fall guy. He is going to end up being the Bernie Madoff of crypto.
Damn.
So with Bernie, people knew what he were doing for years. There were whistleblowers that were talking about it for 5 or 6 years. It wasn't until the recession when they really put that fire out and made him be the face of it. Bernie ran the NASDAQ for many years. And they knew what was happening here with FTX and FTT. I think, unfortunately, because we're in a recession now, even though they won't announce it, he'll be the fall guy for crypto.
Wow.
You think he can go to jail? You did say it's fraud.
I mean, we have to see.
Yeah.
You got to be
I'll
careful.
pray
You got to be
anybody.
careful when you just. We can't just say that legally because we don't
Alleged.
really know. It's alleged.
Yeah.
But you just got to wait and see.
Why are valuations so important? Because I'm just realizing that people don't realize when they see these numbers, like, oh, such and such is worth $3 billion or $4 billion, or he lost $14 billion overnight.
You know what's so crazy about the Kanye, your guy Ye?
Shady.
You know what's so crazy. you know what's so crazy about that is the day that they announced that he lost all of his money, The day before that, I was in LA, meet Troy and 19 Keys, shout out to Keys. And we was talking, and I'm like, I have a strong suspicion that probably 90% or 80% of his wealth is in his company. I just, before any of this happened, and I'm just thinking the kind of person that I think he might be, I don't really see him having a lot of money invested in stock. And, you know, they said that $150 million was taken out of Chase, or they told him that they didn't want his money, so that probably has like $150 million liquid in a bank account. And then, you know, probably has some real estate, and I think he owns like 5% of Skims. And that would probably lead you to have $400 million. But then it's like when you see billions of dollars, that billions of dollars is a little misleading because he doesn't have billions of dollars. That's the value of his company. And if you own 100% of the brand, then if the brand is worth $5 billion, then, you know, that's how much you're worth, right? It's like a car. If you have no money in this world and you have a Rolls Royce that's worth $200,000, then you're worth $200,000. But if the Rolls Royce gets stolen, now you have no net worth at all. So that's what people have to really understand with this net worth list, is that a lot of times they see things and they say, okay, this person is worth $4 billion, but it's like, what is that tied to? If that's just in one company and that one company can go away like that, whether it's Sam Bankman-Fried or whether it's Ye, then that's dangerous because it's not diversified. So it's all an education process, but I think that this, at the very least, has been educational to a lot of people, because they're like, how can you lose $2 billion in one day? How can you lose $14 billion in one day? Well, that's why, because all of your money is inside of your company.
What do you guys think the biggest?
I was going to say the valuation part is like the future profitability of the company, right? And depending on what type of company you have, the valuation can change, right? And so if it's like a tech company, they may say, all right, the company's worth $100 million. Like we saw that with FaZe Clan, right? They earned $100 million, but they got a 10x multiple. And so now that 10x multiple now makes them $1 billion company. And so it's usually around the future profitability of it. So like with Ye, like obviously he has a retail company. Well, what's the projections on retail companies? What type of valuations do they get? That's the homework that you got to do when you're in that business. So education has its own multiple, right? It could be 4x, it could be 8x. So when you take your earnings, right, and you multiply it by that number, that's how you get the future valuation of a company. That's how you become $1 billion company.
So what's the point of that? Is it just vanity? Just to be able to say, hey, I'm worth a few billion?
In business or in general?
Just in general. Both, actually.
I mean, for projections so you can eventually sell it.
Right.
So that's the main reason that they have valuations and projections. Because even the venture community, if you build up a sector, the purpose of that is to take it. We talked to Dave Rubenstein yesterday. You want to take a business, build it up, and then eventually sell it off. So that's the reason behind it. So it's not vanity per se. And I understand Ye was upset because Forbes wouldn't label him as a billionaire, but that goes back to relationship. One of the things we was talking about yesterday is you have to be very careful who you make enemies with, because you don't know who can end up being the assassin in your career. And that's something you talked about a lot. We have to be mindful. But in this recession, like, what are you guys personally invested in? And then I want to talk to you about how do you keep peace during times of strife? Because I know you've been big on mental health. Every time I ask you how you doing, you're like, blessed and highly favored. I'm
blessed,
like,
black, and highly favored. I mean, not every day, but for the most part, you know, the top line.
Gotcha.
You know?
Top line.
The overwhelming team.
So but I want to say something too about Pinky, because y'all had shout out. Was that episode pre-recorded? You spoke
That
about
was this
Pinky?
morning.
Oh yeah, I actually hosted her book launch. Yes,
she's
her
amazing.
book is coming out, and she's
He
just
plays
started her
bitch.
book tour in New York. So I hosted that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pinky. We had her on a few times, and we had her at InvestFest. But to answer your question, it's an important question. So I really wanted to double down on that, because that's something that our community is not fully aware of as far as valuations, the importance of raising capital. So she raised
$25 million.
$25 million for 25% of her company, which valued the company at $100 million. Right? Because it's like, okay, now if somebody's giving you $25 million for 25%, that means your company's worth $100 million. So even understanding the importance of raising money, because it's like, we have never raised any money. We've bootstrapped everything, and people have asked us, like, do we want money? I'm like, no, we always have took the stance that we don't need money. But now being properly educated, I wasn't properly educated on that process. So it's like the circles that we're moving in now is a lot different. So they're educating us like, nah, it's not necessarily that you need money, but now you get outside capital for a small percent of your company, and that gives you a 10x or 20x valuation. Now you're in a position to sell even more, sell the whole company, take the company public. You know, it's so much that you can do with the leverage. And that's something that we don't fully understand, because it's like, we're used to just, you know, pay everything ourselves, do it ourselves, You take pride in that, and there is pride in that. But there's a whole different game where these people are building $1 billion companies, and the companies are not even that big. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like right now, like you would think like, okay, in order to have $1 billion company, you gotta do so much. Nah, not really. You just have to have the right relationships, the right information, and then it's like, okay, you can go outside right now, raise $100 million for 10% of your company. Now you have a $1 billion valuation.
I'm glad you said, because I was just talking about that. I had the CEO of Shea Moisture on, and you know they invest in a lot of Black-owned businesses, Black and Brown-owned businesses. And with my coffee company, I've always paid for everything myself. I have never raised money. And so now we're in the process of getting ready to do that. And sometimes people are really hesitant to give up a piece of their company in order to get, some capital. But if you do want to scale and grow your business, and also like what Pinky was saying, some things you just don't know. And so that might mean I got to bring in some experts, because I also care about who invests in my company. Some people are okay with taking money and they just want a silent investor who has nothing to do with it. But I do want somebody that is going to actually add value. And so, the importance of having somebody who is an accountant. You can't do everything as a business owner. Sometimes you do have to have a team of people that help you, because there's no way you're going to grow your business if you're everything. For her to have 9 locations, there's no way she could be in 9 locations and handling the books and trying to grow a business and having merch and having products in store and having a book tour and raising 2 kids and getting married. That's a lot of things. And so, sometimes you do need to make sure, look, I need this money to help grow my business and make sure that it's really profitable.
And grow faster, right? Because now you can hire 10 employees, you can hire publicists, you can hire so many different people. So that's important for all entrepreneurs to understand that it's not necessarily a bad thing when you're raising money. Just do it, like you said, intelligently from the right people. But if you can grow at a 10x multiple and grow faster and hire more talented people than you currently have and gain the information, that's the next level that we're not really talking about a lot in our community.
I think y'all both said it. One of the most important things is the exposure. Right? How would you know that if you weren't in the right room? Or
right,
you
I would never. You always think, I don't want to owe anybody any money. I don't want to give up a piece of my company.
But that's mindset, right? So the mindset changes when you're exposed to more things, right? And so when we get exposed to people who are in private equity and they're telling us this, it's like, wait, we had the wrong mindset. But we're telling people right now, like, we had the wrong mindset. That's changing now, right? Because if we're looking at ourselves, especially from an infrastructural standpoint, like, we look at ourselves as a global entity, right? So that's why you see us in London. That's why you saw us in Nigeria. That's why you saw us in Egypt. That's why we're going to the UAE in later on today.
Today?
Slight flex.
Oh, man.
No, but that's
we were going to cancel this, but I felt okay.
But it's important. How do we do that, right? Capital helps us do that. Capital helps us build infrastructure. It helps us put people on the ground in these places so that Earn Your Leisure is not just an American brand. It's a global brand, because the issues that happen in the United States happen all over the world, and the people on the ground actually have a in-depth look at what's taking place so they can actually invoke change. So that's why it's important to build infrastructure, but being exposed to information is vitally important.
Where did this stupid ass narrative come from that you have to own everything and put up your own money? It's like, every company that gets to scale.
But when you grow up in an environment when you don't own anything, the second that you actually create something, you
Even with publishing in the music business, people will be like, own your own publishing, don't do this. But you see artists selling their publishing because they get a huge check right now that they're able to invest in other things for that money to grow.
We have to realize there's 2 sets of information. The information that we're usually given versus the sets of information that the wealthy use. That information doesn't trickle. So even when we're talking about infinite scale, we have to look at that. Like, imagine if Rockefeller, Murder Inc., Cash Money in the 90s knew how to invest in the marketplace, they would have been one of the biggest hedge funds in the world. So the valuation game now is like knowing stocks in the 1990s. I don't want it to be 2040 and our community is now just getting this information. So if we know how to do stocks, real estate, grow business, do business together, and it's the main thing I talk to people in the culture. I'm like, if all of us came together for one project with all of our voices, talent, infrastructure, all the knowledge that we have, and like you talked about, we can raise capital. We can be worth $15, $20 billion in 2 or 3 years. But it's the ego that usually stops us from doing so. But there's usually 2 sets of information that is given. No, like even with authors, you know this. Most authors who are talking about their 7 steps to do X, Y, Z, they don't do those 7 steps. Like even How to Make Money in 30 Days in real estate. One of the original guys who wrote that book, my mentor helped craft that book. It was not true on how he was actually implementing. And that's when I learned. I'm like, oh, they'll sell you a piece of information, but that's not actually what they're implementing.
Like, I look at somebody like Bob Johnson. That's still the largest black acquisition, I believe, ever. right? $3 billion when he sold BET. Viacom. Yeah, but he did that initially. He went and got somebody to help him get the scale.
And he brought the Bobcats. So that's another thing too. It's like, people criticize Irv Gotti, and we interviewed him. That's coming out soon on Black Effect Podcast Network.
Hey.
But he spoke about, why he sold his company for $100 million and is to do something else. So it's like
even Richie Lou Dennis from Shea Moisture.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Rich is,
He's a genius.
Rich is a genius.
Elon Musk. So people forget, Elon Musk sold PayPal. For $300 million.
That's right.
Yep.
And then he went broke, starting SpaceX, Tesla. Now he's almost worth $1 trillion. So it's like a lot of times we have good intentions of like keep everything, don't sell anything, and I understand it. Because it's like we do need ownership and we do need, generational wealth and companies that we can pass down to our children. But there's also strategic plans in place as well. And like you said, a liquidity event. If you're getting $1 million a year on your masters and you have an opportunity to sell it for $100 million.
Or even 80.
Yeah. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? If you're gonna blow the money, then no. But if
people act like it's such a bad thing, like, oh, you don't own your masters.
Oh, like, why would you do that?
Well, not owning your masters is a bad thing. If you just come in and
not when when it's worth.
But if it's worth something that you could sell it, but that's the power of ownership, right? Because you can't sell what you don't own.
Warren Buffett had 50 investors when he first launched. Because he went to a bunch of doctors and got a certain amount of money from each doctor.
And then had success with that, left, and then started to build things on his own. And then also people forget Warren owns the most real estate as well. He owns a ton of commercial properties. So what I want us to do collectively is to invest long-term in the stock market, learn how to trade, learn how to build companies, but more importantly, we have to come together and support everyone's businesses. Because I think it's a huge mistake, and the Ye situation highlights it. You can have a bunch of power, but I think if we teamed up, there would be a lot more. We always talk about moats, so that's a protective mechanism around a business.
What separates you from
if you're doing business with people in the industry and the culture and the fan base, it's almost impossible to be canceled because your fan base and your investors will be the same group.
But that one person can fuck it up, though. That one person can fuck it up for everybody. And that's a question I wanted to ask y'all about. Is it even worth being on social media nowadays if you have a business? Because look at, what was that company that just lost all of that money because somebody put out a fake tweet on Twitter?
Eli. They were falling a little bit before that.
And even Kanye. Kanye literally lost his business because of a tweet on social media. I mean, he doubled down. He doubled down and tripled down after.
I think that's
that
a
was
rare
the initial
thing,
one.
though.
The Drake champs, I think, is what did it for him.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we need to be on social media to promote the business, but my thing has been let someone else run it. I'll come up with some of the content and let them, because we have to use that vehicle. We can't shy away from it.
I think during the pandemic, we really learned that a lot of businesses that didn't have an online presence, it was hard for them to survive.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have an online presence, how do you reach the masses at this point? The way that people advertise is completely different. Even if you look at companies, they're cutting back on advertised spending. And so if you have a platform where you have low overhead to no overhead, and you can get your message out to
for cheap,
for free, really, right? To people. I don't care if it's 1,000 people. It's 1,000 new people that
I'm talking Twitter in particular, though.
I think so. Wording is very important, right? And they use words to devalue things like social media.
Influencer.
Social media is media.
That's right.
So media is extremely important. And how you're growing your brand or getting your voice out there, I don't think there's anything that's ever been created as powerful as social media. It's changed our lives, that's for sure. So you have to be responsible with it, though. Just same thing like a media. But when you're building your platforms, and this is important to talk about because black media is extremely important, and I had this conversation with Angela the other day, and a lot of people just think I'll have an Instagram page so I could just post anything, but you have a responsibility. You don't have just an Instagram page, you have a media outlet. And when you're posting things that's just detrimental, that's ignorant, that's reinforcing stereotypes, well, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution, and you're not beneficial. So when something happens and somebody gets killed, then you actually, saying rest in peace is not really even sincere because you're actually contributing to the culture that is leading to young men getting killed. So this is a responsibility that people in media have to take more serious, because when you look at black media and 95% of it is celebrity and gossip based, then it goes to show why we're in the situation that we're in America, where a country like China, and TikTok if you're 14 and under, you don't even get pushed. None of that.
Right.
You get that's for a reason. They understand the power of that. So a lot of times we don't fully understand the power of what we're doing because the words are so minimal. It's like, influence, and now they're world leaders.
Yeah.
Very few people in the history of the world have ever had 1 million people that follow them.
Absolutely.
If you have 1 million followers, you have 500,000, you have 100,000 followers, you're in the top 1% in world history. So you should take some level of responsibility or at least understand that. So that's extremely important. And it's like when growing a brand, understanding the power of social media, how to use social media is important, but it's also understanding what not to post, what to say, the responsibility of who not to offend. Like, these are all things that we really have to be calculated about.
We were having this conversation in Nashville this weekend. We were just sitting around chopping it up, and I was saying how I think that they're putting too much blame on executives in the record industry. Because to your point, the artists are the ones making the music. I don't think the executives care that much other than to make some paper.
But if we're funding drill music at scale, I'm from East Chicago, Indiana, 25 minutes from Chicago. If we're funding that in LA, Chicago, and New York, people are going to gravitate to what pays them. So I know rappers have to take responsibility, but going back to the same Sam Bankman-Fried conversation, if the VCs are funding all these crypto projects and they're saying get us the best gain so we can get the best return, we have to look at the labels in the same capacity and say you're funding the killing, and when they die, you're keeping their masters and sales are going up. That would not be legal in any other industry.
Yeah, I
we
mean,
have to fix that.
Just from an accountability standpoint, right? Think about that. Like, if you know that's the case, from an overarching theme, like, who's accountable for that, right? Because you are structuring these deals and you are promoting it at your gain. Now, you got the people who are the artists, almost like the pawns in it. Like, they're looking at it from a standpoint like it's a chance for me to make money, right? But it's also a chance to you to be a tremendous detriment to the community at the same time. So the people that are constructing these deals, right, there's got to be a certain level of accountability because you can see the long-term effects of it, right? And that's why this is important. Like, even these conversations and platforms are important because it's like, hey, this is a different viewpoint, but it's an important viewpoint.
I feel has it gone too far though? Because we say drill, but drill's no different than what trap music was, no different than what gangster rap was, no different than what 50 Cent was doing.
It's different because the messaging it's progressively gotten worse. And it's so crazy because, I have my son, shout out to Nas, he's 11. So he was like, I want to go to Sugar Hill. Can you take me to Sugar Hill?
Why?
And when he said that,
See, you just shit on drill music and Sugar Hill in? Why? What is it?
I've had a bunch of people that have died.
No, but the thing about Sugar Hill is that, for me, AZ, one of my favorite rappers of all time. So when I think of Sugar Hill, I'm thinking AZ's song Sugar Hill. And when AZ made that song Sugar Hill, that movie Sugar Hill in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance was like the crown jewel of Harlem. That was like the best block in Harlem. That's where like all of the wealthy black people lived in Sugar Hill. So that's why when AZ made that song Sugar Hill, he's from Brooklyn, but that song Sugar Hill was like a metaphor of like he wants to live the good life. And then I'm like, what do you know about Sugar Hill? And then there's a drill rapper, I don't want to mess his name up, but it's Didi Osama, I think his name is. And he's like, he's from Sugar Hill. And he was like, that's like the hood. And but it's just so crazy how a narrative changes. Then I'm starting to listen to the music, and then like his friend was 14 years old. And Didi Osama's friend is 14 years old and got stabbed to death. Yikes. And Didi Osama has beef with K-Flock. He's educating me on it. I don't know none of this.
K-Flock's in prison.
K-Flock's in prison.
Yeah.
So I say that to say it's like this drill music is extremely powerful to young people. Like my son, 11 years old, he don't even know nothing about that. But the fact that he's actually so entrenched in understanding the drill culture is like, after a while, even if you're the best kid in the world, if you are constantly listening to somebody say, I'm going to smoke my ops and it has its effects on you. And it's like a lot of these kids are dying. 14 years old, 6, these kids are young kids. So it's like the drill music, I think, is a lot more violent.
You think so? Come on, man. Onyx, throw your guns in the air. 50 Cent, if it's beef, cocking and jumping, the drama really means nothing. I drop by and blow your brains out.
Yeah, you're naming it, but was there balance at that time? Right, like
no, not really.
So if you had Onyx, you had Trop Call Quest, right? You had different types of sounds. You had Jay, you had Nas, you had different levels of balance.
And to go to era, how many rappers died from gun violence? Now it seems like every month, someone. Like I said, I'm from East Chicago, Indiana. There's a lot of killings that were happening in Chicago before a lot of Chicago rappers were popular. Also, if we're going to talk about generational wealth, notice that these drill environments for music are also in areas in which the banks and hedge funds want to take over that property. So when we get to gentrification, if you have a bunch of killing, a bunch of violence, at some point legislation is usually passed. Happened in Detroit, right? Which you're an investor in. Like the violence was big in Detroit, and then that got gentrified. It's happening in Chicago. It's happening here. So that kind of music is being used as a way to push us out of our communities as well.
Really?
Yes.
Break that down, Ian.
Because if you're looking at the stats, decade over decade, if we have more violence in these cities, the politicians are going to say we need to clean up the neighborhoods. And then if you clean up the neighborhoods, what do? You normally push the people out that are, quote, causing all the problems. Then the value is being pushed up dramatically. So at no point do the drill rappers who get killed get their masters usually, their families are not taken care of, and we're losing the real estate. And then all of a sudden, we'll have the like you said, RIP on social media, but the economics are not coming back into our households and our communities. So it is being used as a mechanism to be able to take away from us.
You see Mayor Eric Adams was talking about banning drill music, and there was a huge backlash.
Which I saw him yesterday. Yeah. Let me ask, what do you think your responsibility is, as you guys don't have radio programming, but you're still in radio? What is your responsibility? How do you feel about drill music? Or not just drill music, but just music in general? Because it's like, if you're talking about popping pills and drinking lean and smoking your ops, and what do you think your responsibility is as a, like, what do you guys feel about that?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I'm 44, so I've been seeing this since the 90s, since the rise of, gangster rap. So a lot of it for me was normalized until I got older, and you start to be like, oh, no, you know what I mean? But for me, I think my responsibility as a personality is just to at least try to provide balance. Yeah. Like in conversations like this, or even just hearing some of that stuff and being like, nah, bro, that ain't it. You know what I mean? Like when I heard Moneybagg Yo say he's trying to find therapy in his cup, I'm like, nah, that ain't the line that we should be
champion.
Nah, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's all I can do.
Angela?
I mean, but as far as that, I mean, that is what really happens in rap and not. People do try to find therapy, and that's an honest thing, right? And so I do feel like
does life imitate art, or does art influence life?
I think that art
influences life.
I used to think that.
No. I
thought that until it started being very profitable in the music industry to pretend to be something you're not. And that's why the whole movie CB4 even existed.
Yeah,
like, there was a lot of people that started pretending just because it was profitable to do.
I just think it's about perspective, too, like how you're framing it. Like if you're saying I was trying to find therapy in my cup, but now you've realized, it's because that does really happen. It doesn't even matter what field you're in.
People self-medicate.
That happens to people all the time. Sometimes people smoke weed because they don't want to think about things. They drink all the time because they're going through something. And so I don't know that that's because of music. I do feel like that's a real thing.
But that's the state of where they were at that time, right? And I think we had that conversation the other day. It was like, very rarely do we get to see our artists mature. We don't get to see growth. We don't get to see accountability, responsibility, because when they tried to make that pivot, it's not profitable anymore. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, if I know that's the new message, right? Like, I compare it to when I grew up listening to Nas, and then I heard Life is Good, and I'm like, wait, this is different. He's talking about daughters.
Yeah.
Like I have a daughter. When I heard Jay on 444 talking about responsibilities inside of a marriage, that's different from the guy I heard on Reasonable Doubt, and it was like, yo, that's growth, that's maturation. We've grown with him, whereas we don't see that. We don't get to that point. We talked about the Jeezy situation. I'm like, yo, I remember when it happened, I'm like, yo, that's growth. Everybody was like, yo, he's a sucker for doing it. I'm like, nah, that's growth, bro. Like, that's the dude, that's the snowman who just had opposition in his face and was mature about it and left. Right, peacefully. And now you see the other part. Obviously, Gucci was like, I was wrong. That's also growth, but we don't get to see it.
Well, I think, like, look at Lil Baby, somebody like him, for instance, and then you see the positive things that he's doing now, even off camera, and then the song The Bigger Picture was huge for him.
Yes.
And so I do feel like artists do have that. I just feel like sometimes it's also experience. Like for us, we don't know better. We don't do better till we know better. And sometimes it is those experiences and having things happen that help you grow. Because you could tell somebody to do something, but until they have an experience that makes them look at things differently, it's hard for them to grasp that.
But we have to, as older people with experience, at least warn them what's coming.
Yeah, you can. But I just think about myself, like you couldn't tell me what to do until something happened. And I'm like, oh, damn, I can't. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes there's a lot of people that'll tell you what to do.
I mean, but we have to start teaching our kids earlier because the core of all of this is lack of money. So even if I'm looking at artists that are promoting certain lifestyles, most of them sign bad deals. A lot of shows are not there. They're getting taken advantage of in many ways, and I think that's why these conversations are important. Thank you for having us here. Because I truly believe if we start teaching, I started teaching my son at 2, how to invest and how to trade. Like, if we teach our kids early and that passes into the community, and that's why we always say on the show, like, share the information with your friends. Because I truly believe if we can make our communities rich before the streets get to them, we will eliminate a lot of these problems. There will be no desire for drill rap if, like, we can show a 13-year-old how to code, how to trade, how to invest, build media, and now he's making $30,000, $50,000 a month. So we have to use our voice, information, and our light to get to them before the streets does. Because when I was growing up, all the elders would tell the kids to get off the street, but I'm like, you have no alternative for them. We have to get to them before the drug dealers and the street does.
Yeah, and it's like one of those valuable lessons, the difference between entertainment and career.
Yeah.
Like, we had this conversation a few years back where it was like, we grow up thinking like rap is going to be our career, whereas other groups think that that's just entertainment, right? Because the career is going to be in other fields. You know what I'm saying? It might be in investing, it might be in finance, it might be in education, but we only see sports and entertainment. That's why I said, like, growing up, it was like, all right, that's the only things we could aspire to be.
Yeah.
But now, like, especially with having media, especially black media, that, like, people like us and people others in the space, they're showing different outlets. So now the education piece, you're not going to sign that bad deal, or you're not looking like, yo, this is the only way to make it out. Like, I just watch guys make $10,000, you know what I'm saying, like, in a year of investing. And so it changes the trajectory, right? When we expose them to education and change the mindset and change what they think they can be, it changes the whole community.
What do you think we can do to make that cooler, though?
I think it's happening now. I mean, even if you look at the last decade, the 3 biggest rappers of the last decade ain't even on that. Kendrick, Drake, J. Cole. I mean, you know, Future's probably the 4th person I would put on that list, right? But it's like those 3 they're not even on that.
Yeah. No, it's happening. We need more amplification. That's me and 19 Keys was talking about this. We had a live, and it's like, all right, we go to London and we sell out Royal Albert Hall, which is the most prestigious venue in Europe and one of the most prestigious venues in the world. And it's 98% black people in there. That's something that needs to be amplified, not just for our own self-gratification, because it's an important message. And it's a very symbolic message, just like the MSG situation is very symbolic. And this needs to be championed by everybody, because it's like, all right, there's no more important issue than financial literacy right now for our community, because financial literacy, like you said, it goes to health, it goes to mass incarceration, it goes to politics, it goes to everything. Yeah. So if we can get out thousands of people, whether it's InvestFest, whether it's New York, whether it's London, this is a global phenomenon. This means that people are interested. This means that the conversation is changing, but we need help. We need help amplifying that, and we need help showing that, because everybody's not aware of it. If you're not in the space, you might not have known what have happened. But it's just like how we hear the same song on the radio every day, and then we like, okay, I know 21 Savage and Drake have an album because every outlet is posting it. And I'm hearing it every single time. So even if I'm not a 21 Savage or Drake fan, I'm at least aware of what they have going on. The same thing needs to happen when the financial literacy movement that you see is making changes. And it's happening. And we are getting, you know, a lot of attention. And shout out to you guys. You guys have championed us. But always, we need more of it from everybody. And like I said, this is something that is extremely beneficial. And this is how we start to change the narrative. Narratives are very, very important. So instead of the narrative being the only black people are basketball players and rappers, no, the narrative is that we can start media companies, we can be investors, we can have trucking companies, we could be public speakers. Like, that's a new narrative. Not to say that anything is wrong with sports and entertainment, but there has to be a balance. And the only way to create that balance is to show an alternative.
Can I ask you guys to get on y'all business, since we're talking
about
that?
Here we go.
Let's go.
What are the plans long-term for Earn Your Leisure? We know, tell us about the Steve Harvey situation. Do you plan to go public? Since we were talking about valuations.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out.
Shotty, like, I don't like this question.
I mean, y'all be asking everybody else now. I want to know.
Cut the lights off. But no, I think that Steve Harvey has been a great relationship for us, and that's something.
Steve.
So he invested in Earn Your Leisure.
He did not invest in Earn Your Leisure, but we did partner on InvestFest.
Okay, so he's part of the festival.
Yeah, he's a partner in InvestFest, and I'm sure we'll probably do a lot more things together with him as well, because he's a very, astute businessman, and he sees the value in what we have created. So he's looking to, to do more things with us, and we're looking to do more things with him. And as far as the brand of Earn Your Leisure, I think that, we've created a very good media company that can grow to become one of the top media companies in the world. And that's the goal, is to really grow it as big as Al Jazeera's and grow it as big as Complex or bigger. And, that all encompasses the live events, that encompasses content, that encompasses education, that encompasses a lot of different things that we have going. And as far as it would be great to have it on the stock exchange, especially since we talk about stocks so much. I think that that's something that would be extremely important and another symbolic gesture for the culture to see, a company that started with a couple of iPhones, and you literally start from one follower on Instagram. Some people have been with us since we had 100 followers from day one. It started as a podcast, then goes to a podcast network, and then grows to a media company, then has live events, then has an educational component, and then, has a lot of other people that are encompassed in the situation, whether it's 19 Keys, whether it's Ian, whether it's MG Mortgage Guy, whether it's Wall Street Trapper, a lot of different people. So I think that it's a great story to tell, because it's black people working together. It's happening in real time. It's bootstrapped. It's working with our friends, all of our people that work with Earn Your Leisure, people that we grew up with.
Would you put Earn Your Love under that?
Earn Your Love is
Earn Your Love is under the
100%
umbrella,
coming
of
under the
course.
umbrella.
But think about that. When we talk about a narrative, like imagine now seeing that. Like we've seen companies get publicly traded, but we didn't know how they started. People literally have watched this from the dining room
in real time.
Right, this is happening in real time, right? So that's the power of media and I guess social media. Is like people have literally watched it. They've seen us on iPhones. They've seen us. We told them the equipment we were using. We told them we were going to be here. We shook hands. We met all these people. We talking about all these things. And now it's a narrative, but it's also a learning experience. This is like the real Nat Geo. Like you're watching us do this in real time. And so to see a company that can go public or have a $1 billion valuation, it's like, think about the aspiration it does for a generation of people. Right? Like kids are looking like, yo, that was my teacher. Yo, I remember when I used to watch him play ball. Yo, I remember when he was in Indiana walking the whole, like, they're watching this happen and they know the people. So it makes it completely relatable, but it makes it aspirational too.
But also, just one last thing I wanted to say that's extremely important. It's also important for us to help grow other brands as well. So it's like we partner with Charlamagne and the Black Effect Podcast Network because we see the value in that, and we see the value in collaboration. We partner with Revolt because we see the value in Revolt. I like what they're doing over there. Shout out to Detavio and Dion and Diddy and all of that. These are things that we're not afraid to work with other people. It's like we have our thing, but it's not 100%. We have to have everything ourselves. Like, let's put a show on Revolt. Let's have our podcast on this network. Like, this is how, as he gets bigger, we're going to get bigger. And as we get bigger, he's going to get bigger. And this is what Steve Harvey sees, right? So it's like, all right, Steve Harvey is already up $200 million, but he sees the value in us on a grassroots level and how we can help amplify his voice to a younger generation. So we're beneficial to him, and he's beneficial to us. So that's extremely important. I want to hammer that in. A lot of times people are too self-centered, and they're too concerned about what they have going on, and they don't want to work with anybody else. We have to stop doing that. The only way to go to that billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar valuation is collaboration.
That's right.
You never built anything by yourself. There's no such thing as self-made. You have to work with other people. You have to work with other brands. You have to work with other companies. You have to know how to negotiate. You have to be diplomatic. You have to be, a gentleman. Like, these are all things that's extremely important. And it's like the narrative of being a hot-headed businessman that's yelling at people, cursing at people.
That might in real time is not working.
It's not.
No.
You got to buy that 1942 for everybody.
By the way, it's never worked. It's never worked.
We're the only culture that does not pride ourselves in team together. Like, all the banks work together. Like, we were at the exchange, company went public. All the banks that you see warring against each other, they were all listed as partners as one. So we've teamed up and done stuff. They doing stuff with Steve. Me, Alex, and Weezy teamed up, did the studio in LA. Like, the only way to create generational wealth is to build with your friends.
That's right.
And then we have to put ego away. And like you said, you can't be a hothead and go off. Like, Tupac's my favorite person. Like, going back to the culture of rap. And I didn't even know back then, like, Tupac was claiming blood, knowing that he didn't grow up in that. One small hot-headed mistake ended up costing him his life. So, like, I think we need to
it wasn't one. It was
multiple.
It was serious.
But that one in Vegas.
Vegas. So, but when you have counsel and you have friends that can check you and say, hey, no, brother, you're doing this wrong. Fix this here, or maybe we need to progress here. That's why I always tell everyone, let's figure out ways to team up and do more things. Like, I'll talk to Chad from 85 and be like, hey, What can we work on? Like, we have to continue to grow, because I hated that Rockefeller, Murder Inc., Rough Riders back in the day didn't do more, but now we are in a position to be that and do that kind of like Cash Money tour. Like,
this is the new Hard Knock Life tour.
Absolutely, because like if Jay-Z and Murder Inc., if they would have just put in $13 million in 1996, just let's say into Apple or any fund, till this day, they would be up $7.5 billion and never have to release an album.
I don't think they had the tools though. I get what you're saying. They didn't have people teaching them financial literacy back then, and just even on the a mental. I'm a mental health advocate, so it's just like mental and emotional health keeps you from being that angry hothead who's projecting all your insecurities on the other people. I don't think they had those tools back then.
Can you give us 3 tips to be more peaceful? Because I really admire you and Troy. Every time I talk to y'all, no matter what happens, you guys are like happy. Me and Rashad working on it. So how can we be happy?
That's my inner Dame Dad.
Rashad always want to argue with everybody for no reason.
I mean, the biggest thing I tell people is go to therapy, number one. You know what I mean? And
how do you find a good therapist, though?
It's gonna take. It takes a while. It's not easy. You know what I mean?
You answered this wrong, man. We're gonna lead with our wives. Or the root.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
What about for those?
100%.
Let's start
100%. I was gonna say God. I mean, mine is therapy, God, and black women. So my wife, you know what I mean. But definitely, like I definitely start with therapy. Therapy is the gateway drug to it all, I think.
Gotcha. Okay.
Therapy is a gateway drug to it all.
That's right.
Hashtag that.
Market Mondays live with Earn Your Leisure. Ian Dunlap, Sunday, November 27th, Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. Are tickets even still available?
Yes.
Okay.
They are. You can go to earnyourleisure.com, marketmondays.com, tab on our website. It's a few tickets left, so get them. And it's gonna be a night to remember.
A time will be had.
1 year Stock Club, which normally costs $10,000 when you get a ticket. 1 year Sniper, which teaches you how to trade. So if you need a quick target, 123 points on the Dow or NASDAQ. If you trade 33 contracts, that's $20,000.
You can speak English.
What
are you saying?
The market is falling, and it goes up 123 points.
Yes.
You can make money as it goes up.
Okay.
If it goes down, you can make money as it goes down, right? So I'm giving them a target to use every day, because normally when a Dow goes up or down on NASDAQ, it normally goes up 400 or 500 points.
Got you.
123 points is the easy target we can use to be able to make money. And I mean, that was funny. But we will hear, and the reason why it may not sound like English, and maybe we need a therapy and financial literacy segment that we can partner on. But if we're hearing rappers talking about selling drugs openly on air, why aren't we having these conversations about where this sounds like English to the culture?
That's true.
That's the fluency part.
That's very true. Yeah.
That's why I said, like, we focus so much on just being literate, but like, that's the ability to read and write. But now let's have the next conversation with we're actually fluid in the language.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't sound foreign to you anymore.
So that was a stock tip you just gave.
Absolutely.
Got you. It was just a segue. I didn't know what you were doing. I didn't know what you were doing.
But we appreciate you guys.
so much.
Go to earnyourleisure.com, marketmondays.com, get your tickets. Floyd Money Mayweather, we have a conversation with him. Don Peebles, billionaire real estate developer. Jadakiss will be performing. We got Peter Tuckman, we got Mouse Jones, we got Susman, we got all of us. We're going to be there.
You guys coming?
And a bunch of surprises.
And that was exclusive, by the way, that Floyd Mayweather is going to be having an exclusive
That's
one-on-one.
exclusive one-on-one, exclusively dropped on the Breakfast Club.
Love y'all.
The champ.
Hey.
Champ is here. Kids should do that. The champ is here.
The champ is here. It's Earn Your Leisure. It's Ian Dunlap. It's the Breakfast Club.